I'm not a parent, but this is a question coming from the lack of discussion on this topic in my household from my parents. How do you talk to your children about the birds and the bees?
What does that mean?
Well, first of all, you know, my approach was informed by my experience as a child. And you know, when I was, I don't know, 12 or 13, I guess, my mom, who worked at the Harnett County Health Department, I think I've told this story before, but it always is worth telling again so that anyone can learn from it. At the front of the Harnett County Health Department, there were all types of brochures about all types of health things that you would need to learn about.
Every STD you can imagine.
And so one day my mom comes home with a brochure and she hands it to me and she says, "Here's a brochure.
I know how much you love them.
I just want you to look through it, and if you have any questions, you know you can ask me anything." I took the brochure.
Now when she said that, did you have any idea, did you think it was gonna be like a Visit Montana like what kind of brochure, did you think it was medical? Did you know? Were you familiar with the brochures in general?
Well, the picture on the front was very graphic.
Oh, describe it.
No, I'm joking.
Sorry, I wanted a mental picture.
I don't recall. I do have to imagine, knowing myself at the time, that the moment I was handed the brochure, I was just seized with fear and awkwardness.
Deep embarrassment.
Not embarrassment really as much, well maybe. And then I was like, okay, and then I took it back to my room. And then I walked in my room, and then I walked into my closet. I grabbed a flashlight.
Wow, we're
very
private.
I sat down in the closet with the door closed with a flashlight.
It's like you're hiding from a home intruder.
I'm like a 12-year-old kid. I mean, it's like
you're in the safe room.
And I'm like reading this thing, and like even if somebody comes in, they won't see me. They'll just like, "Why are you in the closet?"
And somebody being your mom?
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah. Even though she told you to read the brochure.
Right.
What are you doing in there? I'm reading the brochure you just asked me to. I'm sorry.
I didn't. I'm pretty sure I never had any follow-up questions for my mom.
Yeah, and she knew that when she gave you the brochure that you were not going to come to her with questions.
Right. I would call it more of a pamphlet or even a booklet.
How many pages?
It had leaves in it.
How many pages?
I mean
Was it for someone of your age?
It was like this big. It was like, so what's that? 7 inches by 5 inches.
Yeah, don't start giving 7-inch measurements in this context.
So it wasn't like a tourism brochure. Visit Sex.
Sextown USA. Strap in. No, sorry. Did you learn anything?
Oh yeah.
So did you think it
wasn't too late for me? I hadn't already learned it.
You're not real good with numbers, so you really think you were 12, 13? Like, is that how old you think you were? And was this new information to you? Was this all new?
I can't imagine that I was 11.
Okay. And was it all new? Did you have any idea about the
it's
tools
hard.
Involved and?
I mean I had an idea, you know.
But it was a misinformed idea.
But the specific mechanics of it was eye-opening, and it was so it was line drawing. It was sketches.
Yeah. Well, so I mean, because I remember, and one of the differences between me and you is that I was thinking about these things earlier than you were.
Oh yeah.
But I did not have any clear picture of them. Literally, I didn't have a picture. I didn't get a brochure from my parents. So I was kind of
But you had an older brother.
Yeah.
And I think that's the cliche.
We didn't talk about it. I think we were maybe a little too close in age. I don't know, like 3 years apart. I don't know exactly why, but he didn't talk to me about it. It was more picking things up from other kids our age.
But you were interested, you were like looking for clues.
Oh yeah.
You were sleuthing.
I remember piecing things together in middle school and kind of putting it all together and understanding exactly what was involved. But it was more of a just, you know, a occasional casual reconnaissance mission, just gathering, you know, intel from different people and putting it together. But I did not, and I could be wrong about this, but I do not remember having a specific, there may have been like a very early talk at some point before I was really processing and understanding all the things involved for my parents, but I do not remember that. And I also think it was very much a generational thing. Everybody I know who's our age, when I ask them, did you get a talk from your parents? It's either, yes, it was very brief, or no, I didn't get one. But it wasn't this like.
It was over before I knew it, much like the act itself.
It was passive in some manner, like, here's a brochure, go in the closet and read it. And again, I don't blame, who knows what we're doing to screw the next generation up right now. But that was kind of what our parents did. You just didn't talk about those things typically.
But you don't recall any sort of pamphlet.
No
or
pamphlets.
A book.
We didn't really believe in pamphlets in general in my family.
But
never saw one in the house.
But so you don't recall the talk either, though.
No, I do not.
And have you asked them about it? Like, do they recall it?
Oh, because I understand it now. I don't.
But
I don't go to my parents to get this kind of information now.
You didn't. You haven't asked them.
We've never talked about it.
Hey, Mom, tell me about the time you told me about sex because I can't remember it.
Yeah, that's how I bring it up. But let's talk about how we have then. Well, you were about to explain.
Well, I'll just say
how you've done it based on your experience.
For me, because I like to just. I've always made it a point because to counteract my experience with my mom that like we didn't talk through a lot of things. I mean, that's just how it was. I wanted to do something different. I wanted to be more open and have more honest conversations and from an earlier age. And so
and I think that's also generational.
There wouldn't be an instinctive, I just didn't want to give my kids an instinct when they got some sort of information like I did that they had to go hide. Because that just doesn't strike me as a healthy response, a healthy way to view sex, is that it's something that's, it's clandestine, or automatically dirty, or something to be ashamed of, or something to be secretive about. I mean, it's with the proper understanding. I mean, it's totally normal. I mean, it's important.
Yeah.
And it's important to gain a proper understanding of sex in the context of conversations with people that you trust and that you love, and that it can be a safe place to understand. And over time, because it's not just one talk.
Yeah, and I don't think that it's just I think a lot of people may put this off on, a teacher or a professional that's teaching sex ed or whatever. Mm-hmm. And that's fine and potentially great. And I do think that sex education at school it's something I believe in. I think is important because not all parents are going to do this, but
it's extremely difficult to do.
But I think that at least in the circles that we run in now, and again, I think this is slightly cultural, but also generational. It's like there's nobody that we hang out with who has kids who hasn't had it's like we talk to other parents about the talk. Like we've all talked about the talk that we had.
Right, we compare notes.
When did you talk about it? What did you say?
Right.
And I also think it depends on the kid because I'm not gonna name my kids' names at this point because, I've only got two, so I'm not trying to embarrass them. So, but one of my kids was much more inquisitive about it, was asking a lot of very pointed questions about the process and not accepting pat answers that tried to oversimplify things.
You got Pat involved?
Nope, Pat was not involved.
You can pay a person named Pat to come in and
that is
give your
one
kids
option,
a sex talk.
But that is not what I did. And then my other kid was not so inquisitive and asking all these questions. But for the kid who was asking the questions, I sat down and had a talk where I explained everything, basically everything in very technical details and continued to confirm. I was almost like when you were explaining the stuff about the RV, I was like, got it? I kept saying, got it, and then I would ask questions to make sure that he understood.
And it's really, I think a good practice is, the thing that I did was you wanna see where their minds are with their follow-up questions so that you can answer those, as opposed to just giving an information dump and overwhelming them, and then it's like, it may be too much too soon.
Yeah.
So it's more, again, it's
the beginning of a conversation.
It's multiple conversations, and it comes in installments.
And it still happens, right? So I think that's the other thing is that, and again, kids get to a certain age when they start, when it becomes real. So like it's before they go through puberty, kids, this is all very theoretical, but as they begin to go through puberty and as they pass through puberty, it becomes very real to them, and they're like, oh, all that stuff that dad and mom told me is now I understand it because it's happening to me in my body. Mm-hmm. And at that point,
and that's a good point, is that you're talking about those things too. You're talking about puberty, you're talking about your body changing. You're having a lot of potentially awkward conversations, and it's not just all about sex, reproduction.
Exactly, but what I'm saying is that once it becomes personal to them, most kids then have a tendency to withdraw a little bit and be like, this conversation needs to stop because this is no longer theoretical, this is personal. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And so I think at that point, you kind of have to keep going back there and you have to be, I mean, sometimes, and this isn't just limited to talking about sex, it could be anything that's potentially uncomfortable or not cool to talk to your parents about. I just say, listen, that's not gonna be a dynamic in our family. You're not gonna be too cool or too awkward to talk to me about that. I've only got you for a few years and we're going to talk about anything and everything and we're gonna break right through the awkwardness. I have to say that sometimes so that then we could then have the conversation. But as much as from earlier, I like to fib a little bit. When it comes to this stuff, I don't joke around. I mean, I joke around, I make jokes, but I don't. All the information that I give is intended to be as helpful and as true as possible. But but that first conversation was so funny that I recorded the entire thing.
I know that you did that, but even when you tell it to me again, I still feel a wave of shock come over me that you bugged your sex talk.
It was, and actually what happened is I like said one thing.
Because you know what you're supposed to do.
His response was so funny. I was like, I gotta record this.
So you pulled your phone out?
I pulled out the memo recorder, the voice recorder on the iPhone, and I just turned it on and then proceeded to have the talk.
But did you say this conversation is being recorded for quality assurance purposes?
I think at one point he said, Dad, are you recording this? And I was like, yeah, maybe, don't worry about it.
To watch more Ear Biscuits, click on the playlist on the right.
To watch the previous episode of Ear Biscuits, click on the playlist to the left.
And don't forget to click on the circular icon to subscribe.
If you prefer to listen to this podcast, it's available on all your favorite podcast platforms. Thanks for being your mythical best.